Hi, everyone. Let me tell you a story. My name is Alex, and I really like helping people. It makes me feel good inside, like I've done something important. I'm especially happy when I can help older folks. They've seen so much in their lives, and sometimes they need a little extra help. Now, I'm not a superhero or anything, but I do have a special skill. I'm really good at pressure washing. Using that machine that sprays water super hard to clean things. I can make dirty sidewalks, fences, and even houses look brand new again. It's almost like magic. I learned how to pressure wash from my dad. He taught me all the tricks to get rid of grime and dirt without damaging anything. Takes a little practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually kind of fun. And the best part is seeing how happy people are when they see the clean results. That's what makes it all worthwhile. So, that's me, Alex, the friendly neighborhood pressure washer, ready to lend a helping hand and a powerful stream of water to anyone who needs it. So, how did I meet Mrs. Gable? Well, I was walking my dog, Buster, through the neighborhood one sunny afternoon. Buster is a golden retriever, and he loves sniffing everything. We were strolling down Willow Creek Lane when I saw her. Mrs. Gable was sitting on her porch swing, looking a little sad. She had a sweet face and kind eyes, but her house looked like it hadn't been cleaned in ages. There was green stuff growing on the siding, and the porch was covered in dust. I'd seen her around before, always tending to her little garden. She always waved and smiled. I knew she lived alone. Buster, being the friendly goofball he is, trotted right up to her porch and wagged his tail. Mrs. Gable giggled and reached down to pet him. That's when I introduced myself. We chatted for a few minutes. I learned that her husband had passed away a few years ago, and it had been hard for her to keep up with the house. That's when I noticed just how much the house needed a good cleaning. The grime was caked on, and it just looked dreary. An idea popped into my head. Mrs. Gable, I said, trying to sound casual. I know this might sound a little strange, but I'm pretty good at pressure washing, and I noticed your house could use a little sprucing up. I paused, waiting for her reaction. I'd be happy to do it for you, completely free of charge. Her eyes widened. Oh, Alex, that's so kind of you, she exclaimed. But I couldn't possibly ask you to do that. You're not asking, I replied with a smile. I'm offering. I really enjoy it, and it would make me feel good to help you out. Think of it as a neighborly thing. I explained that it wouldn't take me too long, maybe just a few hours on a Saturday morning. I told her about how I learned from my dad and how much I enjoyed seeing the results. I emphasized that I wouldn't want anything in return, just the satisfaction of knowing I'd made her house look a little brighter. She hesitated for a moment, then a warm smile spread across her face. Well, Alex, she said, that's the sweetest offer I've had in a long time. I would be so grateful. Are you sure it wouldn't be too much trouble? Absolutely not, I said, feeling a surge of happiness. It's a date. How about next Saturday? She agreed, and we set a time. I left her porch feeling fantastic, excited to help Mrs. Gable and make her home shine again. Saturday morning arrived, bright and sunny. I woke up feeling energized and excited. I packed up my pressure washer, a long extension cord, and a bucket of special cleaning solution. I even made a little playlist of upbeat music to keep me motivated. When I arrived at Mrs. Gable's house, she was already waiting for me on the porch, a big smile on her face. Good morning, Alex, she chirped. I made some lemonade for you. That's so thoughtful, Mrs. Gable, I replied, feeling even more grateful. I got to work right away. I carefully connected the pressure washer to the water spigot and extension cord. Then, I tested the spray on a small, hidden part of the house to make sure it wouldn't damage anything. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and I was happily spraying away, watching the grime disappear before my eyes. It was so satisfying to see the clean siding emerge from beneath the layers of dirt and algae. I felt like I was giving Mrs. Gable's house a fresh start. The lemonade was delicious and kept me cool. Everything was perfect. Little did I know, my peaceful morning was about to be completely shattered. Now, every neighborhood has that one person, right? The one who always seems to be complaining, pointing out every little rule violation, and generally making life a little less pleasant. In our neighborhood, that person was Mr. Stern. Mr. Stern was the president of the Homeowners Association, or HOA. That meant he was in charge of making sure everyone followed the rules. And boy, did he take that job seriously. He was known for sending out strongly worded letters about everything from lawn height to the color of your mailbox. He lived 2 houses down from Mrs. Gable. He was a tall, thin man with a stern face, hence the name, I guess. He always wore a suit, even on weekends, and he had a permanent frown etched on his face. Kids avoided him, and even adults tried to steer clear of him whenever possible. I'd had a few run-ins with him myself. Once, he complained that my basketball hoop was too close to the sidewalk. Another time, he left a note on my car because it was parked too far from the curb. He just seemed to thrive on finding fault with everything. So, when I saw him marching towards Mrs. Gable's house that morning, I knew something wasn't right. My stomach dropped. As Mr. Stern got closer, I turned off the pressure washer. The sudden silence was almost as unsettling as the noise had been. He stopped a few feet away from me, his arms crossed, his frown even deeper than usual. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice sharp and accusatory. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Good morning, Mr. Stern," I said politely. "I'm just pressure washing Mrs. Gable's house for her." He glared at me. "I can see that. But do you have permission to be doing this?" "Permission?" I asked, confused. "From whom?" "From the HOA, of course," he snapped. "There are rules about excessive water usage and noise levels during certain hours." I explained that Mrs. Gable had given me permission, and I was just trying to help her out. I even lowered my voice, hoping to appease him. But it was no use. He was already in full complaint mode. "This is unacceptable," he declared. "You can't just come in here and start making a racket and wasting water without consulting the HOA first. You're disturbing the peace and potentially violating community guidelines." I tried to explain again that I was just trying to be a good neighbor, but he wasn't listening. His face was getting redder and redder, and his voice was getting louder and louder. I had a feeling this was about to get much worse. Suddenly, Mr. Stern's face turned an even darker shade of red. "Not only are you violating HOA rules," he yelled, "but you're also trespassing on private property. This is a clear violation, and I won't stand for it." "Trespassing?" I exclaimed, completely bewildered. "Mrs. Gable gave me permission to be here." "I don't care what she said," he shouted, his voice cracking. "You're using excessive water, making a terrible racket, and potentially damaging her property. I'm ordering you to stop immediately." He took a step closer, his eyes blazing with anger. "If you don't stop right now," he threatened, "I'll call the police and have you arrested." I was starting to get really scared. I couldn't believe how angry he was getting over something so trivial. I tried to reason with him one last time. "Mr. Stern, please," I pleaded. "I'm just trying to do something nice for Mrs. Gable. Can't you just let it go?" But it was no use. He was beyond reason. His hand disappeared inside his suit jacket, and that's when I saw it. My heart leaped into my throat. This wasn't just a shouting match anymore. This was something much, much worse. He pulled it out. It was a gun. A real, shiny, black gun. He pointed it directly at me. My breath hitched in my throat. Everything seemed to slow down. The birds stopped singing. The sun felt colder. I couldn't believe what was happening. "I told you to stop," he screamed, his voice filled with rage. "You're trespassing, damaging property, and violating HOA rules. I have the right to defend myself and this community." The gun was pointed right at my chest. I could see his finger on the trigger. I was terrified. I had never been so scared in my life. "Mr. Stern, please," I stammered, my voice trembling. "Put the gun down. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to help Mrs. Gable." He didn't seem to hear me. His eyes were wild, his face contorted with anger. He looked like he was completely out of control. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen in fear, staring down the barrel of a gun. I felt helpless and vulnerable. This sunny Saturday morning had turned into a nightmare. I thought, this can't be happening. This isn't real. But it was. And I didn't know if I was going to make it out alive. My mind raced. I knew I had to say something, anything, to try and defuse the situation. "Mr. Stern," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please, just listen to me. I understand you're concerned about the HOA rules, but I promise I'm not trying to cause any trouble." I took a slow, deliberate breath. I talked to Mrs. Gable before I started, and she gave me permission to be here. I'm not trespassing, and I'm being careful with the water. I'm not damaging anything. I tried to make eye contact with him, to show him that I was sincere. "I'm just trying to help an elderly neighbor who needs a little assistance. Is that really so wrong?" I continued, "Think about it, Mr. Stern. Wouldn't you want someone to help your family if they needed it? This is about being a good neighbor, not about breaking rules." I pleaded, "Please, Mr. Stern, put the gun down. Let's talk about this like reasonable people. We can figure something out. Just please don't do anything you'll regret." My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel sweat trickling down my forehead. I was desperately hoping that my words would reach him, that he would see the absurdity of the situation and lower the gun. But I had no idea if he was even listening. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the front door creaked open. Mrs. Gable, bless her heart, had heard the commotion. She shuffled out onto the porch, her eyes wide with concern. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She hadn't seen the gun yet, as Mr. Stern was partially blocking her view. "Mrs. Gable, go back inside," I urged, trying to protect her from the situation. "Everything's fine. Just go back inside." But she wouldn't budge. She stepped forward, peering around Mr. Stern. Her eyes landed on the gun, and her face instantly paled. "Mr. Stern!" she exclaimed, her voice now filled with anger. "What do you think you're doing? Put that gun away right now." She stood her ground, a small but formidable figure confronting the towering Mr. Stern. "Alex is helping me, and he has my permission to be here. He's doing me a huge favor, and I won't let you bully him." I was amazed by her bravery. Here was this sweet, elderly woman, standing up to a man with a gun, all to defend me. It was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. Her voice, though shaking, had a steeliness to it that I hadn't heard before. She was not going to back down. And in that moment, I knew things were about to change. Mr. Stern seemed taken aback by Mrs. Gable's sudden appearance and her forceful words. He lowered the gun slightly, but he didn't put it away. His face was still red, but now there was also a flicker of embarrassment in his eyes. "Mrs. Gable," he stammered, his voice losing some of its earlier aggression. "I was just trying to protect you. This young man is using excessive water and disturbing the peace. He didn't have permission to be here." "That's not true, Harold, and you know it," Mrs. Gable retorted, her voice unwavering. "I gave him permission. He's doing me a wonderful service, and I'm grateful for his help. You have no right to interfere." She continued, "And what's with the gun, Harold? Are you trying to scare us? This is ridiculous. You're acting like a complete fool." Mr. Stern, clearly flustered, tried to defend himself. "But the HOA rules." "I don't care about the HOA rules right now, Harold," Mrs. Gable interrupted. "This is about common decency and being a good neighbor. And you, Harold Stern, are failing miserably." He mumbled something about needing to uphold the standards of the community, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. Mrs. Gable's unexpected defiance had taken the wind out of his sails. I could see that he was starting to realize how ridiculous he looked, standing there with a gun in his hand, arguing with an elderly woman. As Mr. Stern continued to mumble about HOA regulations, a new voice joined the fray. It was Mrs. Henderson, our next-door neighbor, a kind woman who always had a smile and a plate of cookies to share. She had been tending her garden and overheard the commotion. "Harold Stern, what in the world is going on here?" she asked, her voice firm. "I heard shouting, and I saw you with that thing." She pointed a trembling finger at the gun, which Mr. Stern was now awkwardly holding at his side. I was just trying to enforce the rules, he stammered, his face now a mix of red and pale. Enforce the rules with a gun? Mrs. Henderson scoffed. That's ridiculous, Harold. Alex is helping Mrs. Gable, and you're harassing them both. This is not the way we do things in this neighborhood. She turned to me and Mrs. Gable. Are you both all right? She asked, her eyes filled with concern. We nodded, still shaken but relieved that someone else had intervened. I've already called the police, Mrs. Henderson announced, her voice resolute. This has gone too far. Harold Stern needs to learn that you can't go around threatening people with a weapon. A wave of relief washed over me. The police were coming. Finally, this nightmare would be over. But the wait felt like an eternity. We stood there in awkward silence, the tension thick in the air. Mr. Stern, still holding the gun at his side, looked deflated and ashamed. Mrs. Gable kept a watchful eye on him, her face a mixture of anger and concern. Mrs. Henderson stood protectively between us and Mr. Stern, her arms crossed, a silent warning. Every passing car made my heart jump. I kept imagining the police sirens in the distance, growing louder and louder. The wait felt like forever. I replayed the events of the past hour in my head, trying to make sense of it all. How could a simple act of kindness turn into such a terrifying ordeal? Finally, I heard the distant wail of sirens. They grew louder and louder, until 2 police cars screeched to a halt in front of Mrs. Gable's house. 2 police officers jumped out, their faces grim. One of them immediately approached Mr. Stern, his hand hovering near his holster. Sir, we need you to put the weapon down and step away from it, he said, his voice calm but firm. Mr. Stern, looking utterly defeated, slowly placed the gun on the ground. The officer quickly secured it. The other officer approached us, his eyes scanning the scene. Are you all right? What happened here? He asked. The real story was about to unfold. The police officers spent the next hour interviewing each of us separately. They asked detailed questions about what had happened, from the moment I started pressure washing to the moment Mrs. Henderson called them. I told them everything, trying to remain calm and composed, but my voice still trembled slightly as I described Mr. Stern pointing the gun at me. Mrs. Gable corroborated my story, her voice filled with anger and disbelief at Mr. Stern's actions. Mrs. Henderson provided additional details, confirming that she had witnessed Mr. Stern behaving aggressively and holding the weapon. Mr. Stern, when questioned, seemed to shrink in on himself. He mumbled something about protecting the community and enforcing the rules, but his explanations sounded weak and unconvincing. After gathering all the statements and assessing the situation, the police officers placed Mr. Stern under arrest. They read him his rights and led him to one of the patrol cars, his head bowed in shame. As they drove him away, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that the ordeal was over, sadness that it had happened at all, and a lingering sense of fear. The street felt quieter than ever. The police assured us that they would conduct a thorough investigation and that we would be informed of any further developments. Then they left, leaving us to process what had just transpired. The weight of the morning pressed down on us all. Once the police had left, Mrs. Gable turned to me, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Alex," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I am so sorry. You came here to do me a kindness, and this is what happened. I feel terrible." She reached out and took my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Thank you," she continued. "Thank you for being so brave and for trying to help me. And thank you for not pressing charges against him, even though he deserved it." I assured her that it wasn't her fault and that I didn't blame her at all. "You were amazing, Mrs. Gable," I said. "You stood up to him and you were incredibly brave. You saved me, really." She insisted on making me lunch even though I wasn't hungry. As we sat at her kitchen table, sipping lemonade and nibbling on sandwiches, she kept thanking me over and over again. "You're a true friend, Alex," she said. "I'll never forget what you did for me today." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Despite everything that had happened, I was glad I had helped her. The house still needed to be pressure washed, and I promised her I would come back and finish the job as soon as I felt up to it. And honestly, I was already looking forward to it. A little bit of crazy HOA stuff wasn't going to stop me from being a good person. Later that evening, after I had had some time to process everything, I decided to look into the HOA rules that Mr. Stern was so obsessed with. I went online and found the official document. I couldn't believe what I discovered. The rules about water usage were actually quite reasonable. They encouraged residents to conserve water, but there was nothing that prohibited pressure washing, especially for maintaining the cleanliness of your property. There were also guidelines about noise levels, but they only applied during late night and early morning hours. I was pressure washing during the day, well within the allowed time frame. It became clear that Mr. Stern was either misinterpreting the rules or, even worse, making them up as he went along to justify his actions. He had used the HOA rules as an excuse to exert his power and control over others, and it had almost led to a terrible tragedy. I wondered how many other times he had used his position to harass and intimidate people in the neighborhood. It was a sobering thought. The HOA was supposed to be there to help maintain the community and ensure that everyone followed the rules, not to become a tool for one person's power trip. It just went to show that even good intentions can be twisted and abused. I knew Mr. Stern was in serious trouble. Pointing a gun at someone is a very serious crime. I learned that he would likely face charges for assault and possibly even aggravated assault, depending on the laws in our state. These charges could carry significant prison sentences and hefty fines. Beyond the criminal charges, there were also potential consequences related to the HOA. Even though he was the president, his actions were a clear violation of the HOA's code of conduct. He had abused his power and acted in a way that was harmful and threatening to other residents. It was likely that he would be removed from his position as president, and he could even face further penalties from the HOA, such as fines or restrictions on his privileges. I also knew that Mrs. Gable could potentially sue him for emotional distress and the trauma he had caused. It was a lot to think about. While I was angry and upset about what had happened, I didn't want to see Mr. Stern's life completely ruined. I believed that everyone deserves a second chance, and I hoped that he would learn from his mistakes and seek help to address whatever anger or control issues he was struggling with. I knew that justice needed to be served, but I also hoped for a path towards forgiveness and healing. The whole experience left me feeling shaken and vulnerable. It was hard to believe that something like that could happen in my own neighborhood. On a sunny Saturday morning, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what I had learned. First, I realized that helping others, even when it's difficult or scary, is always worth it. Even though things had taken a dark turn, I was still glad that I had offered to help Mrs. Gable. Seeing her happy and grateful made all the fear and anxiety worthwhile. Second, I learned the importance of standing up to bullies. Mr. Stern had used his power and position to try to intimidate me, and if Mrs. Gable and Mrs. Henderson hadn't intervened, things could have been much worse. It's important to speak out against injustice and to protect those who are being targeted. Finally, I realized that even the most well-intentioned rules can be used for harm. It's important to question authority and to make sure that rules are being applied fairly and justly. We all have a responsibility to hold our leaders accountable and to ensure that our communities are safe and welcoming for everyone. Despite the fear and the trauma, I came out of the experience with a renewed sense of purpose and a stronger commitment to helping others and standing up for what's right. A few days later, I returned to Mrs. Gable's house to finish the pressure washing. This time, I brought Mrs. Henderson with me for moral support. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing, just like before. But this time, there was no Mr. Stern to ruin the peace. As I sprayed away the remaining grime, I couldn't help but smile. Mrs. Gable's house was looking fantastic. The siding was clean and bright. The porch was sparkling, and the whole place seemed to radiate a sense of joy and renewal. Mrs. Gable was beaming as she watched me work. "Oh, Alex," she said, "it looks wonderful. You've made such a difference. I can't thank you enough." But the best part was the outpouring of support from the community. After word got out about what had happened, neighbors started dropping by with flowers, cards, and offers to help Mrs. Gable with anything she needed. People were outraged by Mr. Stern's actions and wanted to show their support for Mrs. Gable and me. It felt like the whole neighborhood was rallying together to stand up against bullying and injustice. I received so many messages of support. It really showed me how many good people there are in the world. The HOA also got involved, launching an investigation into Mr. Stern's conduct and ultimately removing him from his position as president. It was a clear message that his behavior was not tolerated and that the community valued kindness and respect above all else. As for Mr. Stern, his legal case is still ongoing. He has been charged with aggravated assault, and the trial is set to begin in a few months. The HOA is also in the process of reviewing its rules and procedures to ensure that something like this never happens again. They are working to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for all residents. Mrs. Gable has decided not to pursue a civil lawsuit against Mr. Stern. She said that she just wants to put the whole thing behind her and move on with her life. She's been attending community events and spending time with her neighbors, and she seems to be thriving in her newfound sense of connection and support. The HOA has also implemented new training programs for its board members to help them better understand their roles and responsibilities. They are emphasizing the importance of communication, collaboration, and conflict resolution. The hope is that these changes will prevent future misunderstandings and ensure that the HOA is serving the best interests of the entire community. It takes a lot to make things right after something goes so wrong, but progress is happening. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, I think it's a reminder that even when things get scary, it's important to hold on to your values and to stand up for what's right. Kindness matters. Even a small act of kindness, like offering to pressure wash someone's house, can make a big difference in their life. And it can also inspire others to be kind. Community matters. When we come together to support each other, we can overcome even the most difficult challenges. Mrs. Gable, Mrs. Henderson, and the entire neighborhood showed me the true meaning of community. And standing up for what's right, even when it's scary, matters most of all. It takes courage to speak out against injustice and to protect those who are being bullied, but it's the only way to create a better world. Even though I was terrified when Mr. Stern pointed that gun at me, I'm glad that I didn't back down. I'm glad that I stood up for Mrs. Gable, and I'm glad that I helped to bring about positive change in my community. So remember, be kind, be brave, and always stand up for what's right. Even the smallest act can make a big difference. And you never know, you might just inspire someone else to do the same. You can make a difference. Thank you for listening to my story.